Okay, so the first step in using MongoDB is to create a cluster on a service that MongoDB offers called Cloud Atlas. And so we're going to need an account for that. So what I did for this video is I made a new account on Gmail called mark.goodman.cis or .cis233y that I can use to register a new account on MongoDB, and then starting from scratch, provision a cluster and create a MongoDB database so that you can see the whole process. So first step is I'm going to go to mongodb.com and log in. Actually, I'm going to create a new account. So under this little menu here, I'm going to, I think I probably want try free, but I'm going to start with sign in instead. And then don't have an account, sign up. So I'm going to sign up with my new Google account, but I've used pcc.edu account successfully in the past. So this one is going to be mark.goodman.cis233y probably at gmail.com, and hopefully that's actually correct. And then for my password, this is the actual password for my Gmail account. I'll try it again here. I think that's what I used. Okay, so sign into that, and I'm going to continue. All right, and then I'm going to accept the privacy policy in terms of service. I encourage you to peruse those at your leisure, and then submit. And it may ask me to validate my account. We'll find out in a second. Okay, so my registration succeeded. That's good. And then, all right, so it's going to ask for some user profile type stuff. So my primary goal is I'm going to learn MongoDB, and then I've been developing software with MongoDB for, let's see, I guess the biggest option is more than a year. So more than a year. And then getting to know your project. So programming language, it actually supports all of these different languages pretty much out of the box. So that's one of the reasons it's one of the more popular alternatives to relational databases and is so widely deployed. So certainly if you've taken C# at PCC or C++ or Java or JavaScript, Node.js, these are all languages we teach, PHP, Python, and then that's pretty much everything we do here. All of them have drivers for MongoDB. And then type of data that my project is going to use. Okay, so let's see what we have. Yeah, I don't think any of these are really, I mean, sort of catalog inventory data maybe, but no. I'm going to just say not sure, none, or other. And then please specify the types of data as optional. It's optional, I'm not going to do it. And then will application include any of the following architectural models? I think this is optional as well. No. So I'm going to say not sure, none. Finish. Okay. Now, there are different tiers of service depending on what kind of support and what kind of capacity you need. But M0 is a free tier of service, which is perfectly adequate for this course. It gives you a storage of 0.5 gigabyte, which is more than we're going to need. And then shared RAM, shared CPU, but it's not usually a problem. So I'm just going to go ahead and select M0 for free. And then I'm going to create a deployment. And then in order to connect, I need to add a connection IP address. It says the current IP address is, this is my current IP address. Now I have a static IP address on the internet, which I pay a ridiculous amount of money for every month. But for consumer level, most likely you have a dynamically assigned IP address, which changes periodically. So this is okay for me, but will probably not be okay for you. So I'll show you how to fix that. And then I'm going to create a database user. And then for username, let me do, I'm going to name it to reflect my actual application. So let's call this playlist manager. And then password is fine, random generated, and typically you would not want to store this in your source files, but we won't actually be covering where to handle that until the last lessons on cybersecurity. So for now, I'm just going to put it in the code and not worry about it. So I'm going to create the database user. And then I'm going to choose a connection method. And then for drivers, you have different drivers for different languages. I said before that Python was my language of choice, and so it's suggesting the Python driver. And then for version, they have slightly different versions for all of these different versions of Python. I've been using 3.12 successfully, so I'm going to stick with that. And then to install the driver, it gives me a command that I can execute. But of course, if I copy this command, I'm going to lose access to my password. So let me go ahead and just put it somewhere convenient. Actually, so convenient here is it's ultimately going to end up in this database file for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a constant property to my database class for password, and then that's going to be the string that I got at random. Okay, so in order to install the driver, I have to execute this command. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that. And then from the command shell, actually make a command shell. So before I do install, I always like to make sure that I know where it's going so that I can make sure that the project interpreter that I'm using is actually the same one as where I just did the install. So, I'm going to start with pip -- version. And so I see the pip it's running is in users mark app data roaming Python 3.12 site packages pip, which is what I expected. And then I can also do Python -- version. And that tells me that this is 3.12.3, which matches the pip. And then I can do where Python to see where it's installed. So for most of you, you're probably going to see C users, your username, app data local Python, or app data local programs Python 3.12 or something like that. But I'm running Windows Server Data Center on this machine, and so I have Python installed for all users. And for a variety of reasons, anyways, it ends up in this program files directory instead of under the users folder. So for me, I think this is okay. If yours isn't right, then you're going to want to make sure you fix your environment variables so that you're pointing at the right one. And then we're also going to check the project settings to make sure that we're pointing at the right one as well. So I'm going to just paste in that command and execute it. Now, I already had PyMongo installed, so it didn't do anything particularly interesting. But when you install yours, it will probably give you a bunch of stuff about loading. But just make sure there's no errors here and you should be okay. All right, so that was step one. And then step 2, I'm going to go back to my project here, and I'm going to go to the pancake menu settings, and then Python interpreter Python 3.12 is the one I'm currently using, which is matches what I had in the command shell. And then in this list of packages, we should see PyMongo. But now, for reasons that have to do with Unix, basically, uppercase letters come before lowercase letters. So for PyMongo, you actually have to skip the PYs here and then go all the way down to PY here. And there it is. Okay, so this means that we had it installed, which is good. If we hadn't, what we would do is click that plus sign here and then search for PyMongo. And then here's the PyMongo package, and you can install it by clicking this install package. But that SRV in the square brackets at the end of it, that means you also need something called DNS Python. So you have to install either DNS Python or DNS Python 3, probably DNS Python, in addition to PyMongo in order to make this version work. But we have it installed already, so I don't need to do that. Bottom line is, if you run into trouble, let me know and I will help you. Okay, so everything's looking good here. So if I've done that correctly, I should be able to say, actually go back to here. There's example code later on. So view PyMongo Python driver installation instructions. And then here's more code. So you can get a full code sample, which includes everything you need and more stuff, or just this one-liner, which is really all we need for now. And then this show password toggles or hides the password value. So what I did was I actually pasted the password in here just in case, because I didn't want to lose it. But if you want to see the password, you can enable that. So I'm going to copy this command, and this is really the main thing we need. So in addition to importing PyMongo, we're also going to want this line. And then I'm going to use this in a connect method. So basically, there's going to be a connection, which is initially going to be none. And then I'm going to make a class method, because I only want one connection, called defconnect. And then the first thing is it's going to check to see whether we're already connected, and if we are, it's not going to do anything. So if cls._connection is none, then we're going to make a new connection. So connection is equal to, and then basically what we want is this client thing here. So this Mongo client, it takes the URI, which is the first thing, and it makes an API level, which is the second thing, and the call is Mongo client, which is imported from PyMongo, .mongo client. So I'm actually going to copy these imports here. And then URI, I will go ahead and copy as well. And this has the password string in it. So I'm going to paste this in at the top and then make it a constant. And then the actual connection part is this thing here. And this one's storing it in a variable called client, but we want to store it in a property called connection. So paste that in here and then get rid of this bit. All right, and then this is now a constant, so it's going to be cls.uri. And then the rest of this looks fine. So what this says is if I'm not already connected, go ahead and make a Mongo client, which is a connection, and store it in this connection property. Otherwise, if I am connected, then connection is not none, and so I skip everything. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make this thing be a formatted string. And then instead of embedding the password here, I'm going to go ahead and put password. And then let's do this for the username as well. So that's the username. And this will actually make our lives a little bit easier when we get to Lab 5. And then here's the cluster. And this is actually an IP address or a host name on the internet. We'll translate into an IP address that they are providing to us for free, where our database is running, and you can connect to this from anywhere. And then this stuff is boilerplate, and it has to do with various policies for how your cluster has 3 machines in it, and there are different policies for making sure that they all have the same stuff on them. And don't need to worry about that. Default is fine. So those are all of the things that are going to vary from project to project. And these are actually things that we're going to store in an external file that holds our credentials later on when we get to Module 5. But for now, if I call the connect method, I should get a connection. So what I'm going to do is at the bottom here, I currently have some test code that gets the videos from the database and then prints them out. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to just call connect, actually database.connect, and then I'm going to put a breakpoint on the connect method and see what happens. So I'm going to run it under the debugger. And then I have 2 of these because I forgot that I had one of these from before. So I'm going to go ahead and close that tab. And then I'm going to stop this thing as well. And I'm going to right click on database and select run. Under debugger, debug database. Okay, so I'm stopped at the breakpoint. I'm going to step over. So connection is none. So I'm going to execute this command. And then it immediately executed the command and returned when it was done. So I'm going to open special variables and then open database. And then here are the constants. And then there should be a protected attribute for connection. And sure enough, we have a Mongo client. So that means that it's working at least up till now.